Welcome back to Close Up. The nation took notice last week as the St. Anselm College Survey Center polled registered New Hampshire voters in the aftermath of the CNN debate and found an apparent shift underway here in the Granite State. Former President Donald Trump at 44%, President Biden at 42%, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at 4%. Here to help us sort through the data is Neil Levesque from the New Hampshire Institute of Politics. Neil, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
So this is a real shift. What happened between December, when you last polled this race, and now?
Well, we didn't poll directly behind the debate, so we don't know if it was everything involved with the debate, but certainly now we're in different uncharted territory. With only 6% of people thinking that Biden won, he's in tough shape. Plus the fact that this was not just sort of a candidate outdoing another candidate on a debate stage on issues. This was something else and deeper.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, you talked to folks about what they thought about the outcome in terms of who won the debate. 54% said Trump, 6% said Biden, 39% said nobody won at all, which I think you can probably figure that's a large chunk of Democrats there who are just very frustrated by the outcome. What's your read on that result in terms of who won and who didn't?
Well, obviously, I think Biden lost this debate. But again, I think it was more like people got to see him up close, operating without a teleprompter, without staff, and they didn't like it. And now they're afraid about what the future is. Trump's already been leading in 6 or 7 of the battleground states. Now we get to states like New Hampshire, which are one tier lower than that. And now this presidential election is alive and well now in New Hampshire, and it hadn't been in the past.
An interesting twist, though, in some of the data that you have, 81% of those who watch the debate say it will not affect for whom they choose to vote for president. What's up with that?
Well, if you take that 17 to 19% of people who say that they were influenced by it, and then you take the 17 to 19% who say that they don't like either candidate, and 17 to 19% who say basically that they could go either way in this election, you're looking at the people who are going to decide this presidential election. And it's about 17 to 19% of people who are right there in the middle. They're watching this stuff and they're saying, who am I going to vote for? Interestingly, they don't like either candidate.
Democrats now have this dilemma. Obviously, this was a very poorly received performance by a lot of folks. Some are asking, do we need a new nominee? But that's totally up to Joe Biden, essentially. He has these delegates, and he's on his way to the nomination unless he chooses to do something differently. People can always spitball this stuff. Oh, how do you replace the nominee? You've been in the room with a lot of powerful people, a lot of presidential candidates, a lot of top people in Congress. How hard is it for the people around those people to sit them down and say something needs to change?
At that level, people are extremely competitive. They fight very hard to even get to where they've gotten to. And so for someone to come in and say you need to step aside, it just doesn't happen. So at this point in time, there are mechanisms. So if the president decided to not be the candidate before the convention, they could definitely choose someone else. They are pledged delegates, as you said, so it would be very awkward. But certainly with Biden-Harris being on the ticket as well, the financial advantage of people who wrote checks to the campaign is there. So I think that there is a mechanism. I think there's sort of blood in the water at this point. People are talking about it, and so it could happen.
If this wild scenario plays out, even though they are Biden's delegates, to what extent do you think the party will have a say? These people coming to see the president, their ability to say, hey, we want person X or person Y, Gretchen Whitmer or Gavin Newsom, or does it end up being Kamala Harris because she's just right there as the vice president?
I think it'd be very awkward for them to pick anyone other than Harris because she's been the vice president. She's on the ticket with him. She certainly polls just slightly better than Biden. So I think it'd be very awkward if they didn't pick him. The party's going to have every bit of say in this. So the people who are coming to the president saying, you should step aside for Harris, that's going to have a big, big impact. They're not going to do this on their own. And so we'll see how this comes out with the next couple of weeks, whether or not he's still in play as the candidate. I think the other factor is that he's weak at this point, and other people don't want to be on the ballot with him.
Yeah, all right. A fascinating snapshot in time. We'll see what happens next. Neil Levesque from NHRP, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. All right, that wraps up this edition of Close Up New Hampshire. Thanks for watching. Have a great Sunday.